Okay, and I think we have a good group here. I presume we have faculty, we have students, and we have good attendance. So happy that you all made it here. Very happy. So okay, let's get to it. So Melissa, any other business to talk about?
Yeah, just that this will be recorded. We'll send it to everyone because I know that question comes up quite a bit. And then we are going to close the chat during the session. So please enter your questions in the Q&A. And then if you shared your project with Dr. Lanny at the end, after the initial presentation is when we'll work through those. We'll have you raise your hand and then unmute you, and then you can work together. So that's how this process is going to work.
Perfect. And as it turns out, lots of people are doing kind of the similar things. Most DNPs are doing, paired t-tests, and we can talk about that. And if you're a faculty member and you're doing something more advanced, that's absolutely fine as well. All right. So kind of a brief gender, and I try to stay with this. Understanding basics. I want to understand levels of measurement of your data. Because that has implications for what analysis that you're doing. I'm going to just briefly talk about Likert type items. People get confused. Is it ordinal? Is it scale? How do I treat that type of variable or data? Test selection. How do we do that? How do we select the right test? People get stuck there. How do I set up the data? And I'll share some of that with you. We'll get into creating an account, and I think that information is in the chat, and that you can see. And then I want to just touch it and just walk through really data cleaning wizard. A lot of people, it's like, how do I get my Qualtrics data into a form that I can use here? So the data cleaning wizard can help with that. Talk about different tests. I don't know if we're going to get to all of them, but we'll get to as many as we can. We've also added an AI summary, which is after you've conducted some tests. Let's go ahead and summarize that in a paragraph form without the numbers. And then how do you download things and Q&A. So let's talk about levels of measurement real quick. So basically, all data gets bucketed into one of three levels of measurement. It's either a nominal level of measurement, okay, which is name only, male, female, Republican, Democrat, independent, whatever, okay? It's just the name only, it's just labels. Ordinal has the kind of the order in the name, and ordered is, it has an order, and it has a label. So small, medium, extra large, 8 ounce, 12 ounce, 64 ounce, or whatever the heck they have there. So it has labels and an order, but the intervals is not always the same. So the distance, so to speak, or in ounces, in my example, from 8 ounce to 12 ounce and 12 ounce to 64 ounce, not the same. Horse race, horse comes in first, the next horse comes in a nose later, the next one comes in 5 lengths later. So it has a name, first, second, third. It has an order, okay, but not equal intervals. Scale, okay, or ratio or interval. I'm using these all synonymously for the purpose of the tool. And your analysis really has all three, right? It has a label, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. It has an order, right? 2 is after 1, 3 is after 2, and it's equally spaced. All of them have 365 days in between. So that's just basically 3 levels that you need to know. And the tool's going to require you to know that as well. So it's a simple concept. The icons kind of help with that. And so just to refresh folks that was not quite up on that. A moment about Likert type items. Likert type scales, or Likert type scales, I think is the correct pronunciation. Really, people wonder, is it an ordinal? Okay. I'm talking about things like strongly disagree to strongly agree. Okay, this is Likert type items. So is it an ordinal or is it a scale? Okay, and the basic rule of thumb is this. Two rules of thumb. The first rule of thumb is if it's a 3 or 4 point scale, okay, keep it as ordinal. Okay, and I put down a reference here to the Statistic Solutions link there. That and maybe we can put that into the Q&A or into the chat as well. That if you're looking at one item to one item and it's 3 or 4 points, keep it as ordinal. If it's 5 or 7 points, the research says you can treat it as a scale level variable. And scale level variables are much easier to deal with in terms of if you look at the mean and so forth. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing I want to mention is, most Likert type items, okay, it's just not an individual item. Okay, I'm not comparing this horse race to that horse race. That happens, but most of the time we have a whole instrument and there's lots of items in that instrument. And in those items, you have these, whatever it is, 3 or 4 or 5 or 7. Well, but I have to add those together. Okay. So even if it's 3 or 4 point ordinal, when I go to add these things, I have to turn them into a number. Okay. I can't add strongly disagree with agree. I'm not okay. It has to be put into a number. So, so when you're creating composite scores, just know that these things are going to be numbers. Just to give you another example, when you took a test in grade school and you have correct or incorrect, all right, that's a nominal variable. That's a nominal dichotomous variable. You got it correct or you got it wrong, right? Right or wrong, correct or incorrect. Well, even though it's nominal, I'm going to add up those 100 items to say you got an 88 on that test. Okay, so even though it's a nominal or a scale, we're going to be adding these things or averaging these things. So don't get too hung up on it. Most things are 5 or 7 points. Most of them get added within a scale. Okay. The tests. What tests do we use? Okay. Unfortunately, people get really hung up on this. So the idea of the test is that you have to get what are you seeking to answer, right? What is the real variables involved and what is the relationship of those variables? So the question itself and the level of measurement. Those two pieces of information create the data plan. So I think I have a, so let's talk about statistical language for a second. Everyone is, everyone's required, it seems like in DNPs to have a PICO question. What's the population? What's the comparison? What's the intervention? Okay, that's all fine. I like to think about things in terms of PICO light. What does that mean? That means I want to know what is my outcome and what am I testing? I'm testing knowledge pre to post. So you can have your PICO question, fine, but understand the root of it. I'm comparing the differences in knowledge pre to post. Or did the percent of 30-day readmission change pre to post intervention? Get to the heart of the construct. So that's what I mean by PICO light, okay? So, and in my questions, is there a difference? Okay, that's statistical language. Is there a difference in knowledge pre to post? All right, I'm talking about my variables and am I relating them? Am I predicting them? Am I looking for differences? So these are really important kinds of language that we need. That language with that level of measurement, are there differences on that scale variable, on that scale knowledge pre to post? Okay, so I'm kind of in t-test land there. Okay, are there differences on, a scale knowledge variable pre to post a 6-month follow-up? I'm in ANOVA land. So, and I'll get into the decision tree in the tool, but my point here is please, again, write the PICO question, but understand what the root thing is, okay? You don't need to know, I'm assessing, women at a Midwest college and blah, 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 okay? For the statistical analysis part. So, to get to this data plan or test selection, understand the root question and understand the level of measurement of that root question. Okay. So, study aim, statistical language, here were the most common ones, okay? I'm sure you could say this in lots of ways, but are there differences on A by B? Or is there differences in pre-test to post-test? That's the type of question. Does A relate to B? Okay. Relationship kinds of question. Or does A, predict B or impact B? Okay, things of this sort. So these are the most common, and this covers lots and lots of things, by the way, lots and lots of tests. So you have to kind of know in your brain what kind of relationship between these variables are we seeking to get to. That relationship or those differences or that prediction speaks to different tests. All right. Okay. And I'll try to exemplify a few of these in the decision tree in the tool momentarily. All right. Data setup. There's lots of ways to put data, but typically speaking, there's two ways of putting in data. Okay. The first way is you have the same participant over time. Okay. Participant ID number one has a pre-test score, has a post-test score. You need them on the same row. All right. Same participant, same data. By the way, you can have ID number one, participant number one, pre-test, post-test on knowledge, if they had some demographics, their age or their gender, or they had another scale, emotional intelligence or whatever. All that individual scores need to be on that same row. Okay. All right. And really, you're really in t-test land or in ANOVA land, okay, repeated measure ANOVA land, pardon me, or paired t-test land, okay. So just the rule of thumb is same participant, all of that data is all in that row. Okay. Now, you may have, let's just take knowledge scores, okay? You could have knowledge scores and you could have different people at pre, different people at post, different people at follow-up. Now we're stacking that data. So I'm going to examine the dependent variable, let's call it knowledge, okay, by three different types of groups, different people. When different people, you're stacking, okay? All right, you're looking at some outcome variable by different groups. Folks at pre, folks at post, folks at follow-up, okay? And, all right. By the way, I should have just said that this could have been a control group, an experimental group, okay, or an intervention group and a control group. Maybe that's a better way of looking at that stacking. The data cleaning wizard I'll get to, which is basically it's a quick way to get your data in shape, particularly from Qualtrics, okay, or SurveyMonkey. Okay, we have several rows of headers, things that you need to create composite scores. Okay, so we have a very streamlined way of doing that. All right. And then I'll show you kind of the AI summary, which is basically looking at all of your results and coming up with a few paragraphs that kind of perhaps start a discussion chapter or section, something of that sort. Okay. And then Melissa, you'll keep me on track now because you'll say, well, wait a second, you were going to do this. So, okay. So now it's time to get logged in. So you can use this link to get logged in, and then you'll want to hit Intellectus Statistics after that. Okay. And if you have a question about that, you can ask one of the Ashley or Melissa or Samantha. Okay. All right, so, and I'm just gonna go, so let's just get to the data. Okay. So let's get started here. So let me just give a quick brief overview of the tool. So the tool allows you to upload data from different files or enter data manually. You can then manage the data, okay? Create composite scores, things of that sort. You can plot data. You can analyze data, okay? There's lots of different types of tests here, okay? And then there's some a priori functionality, which allows you to figure out what test to use, the assumptions of the test and power. And I'll just mention this one because I said, people struggle with what test. So let's say I want to predict an outcome, okay? So I can select predict an outcome. Now I have to know, what is that outcome for my dependent measure? What is the level of measurement there? So let's just assume it's scale. I'm doing a linear regression. So so you can walk along this decision tree, okay, about differences or prediction okay. And then between that type of statistical language and level of measurement, drive you to the correct analysis over here. All right. All righty. So let's exemplify some of the, let's just start with uploading data. So typically, Qualtrics data can often look like this. Just several rows of headers, okay? And then you have kind of perhaps labels inside and perhaps an open-ended question, all right? So that's a very common way that one would export Qualtrics. So let's just go ahead and upload that. So I'm going to go, and for those following along, you can just watch this, and then we'll practice uploading something else. But let me just get to the data cleaning wizard. So I'm going to go to projects. That's where I upload data. I'm going to go to upload a data file, and then I'm going to select the file format and select the type of file. And here I'm going to go to Rosenberg's self-esteem. Okay. So once you select the file, you can go to upload. Okay. And then we get jumped right into the data cleaning wizard. So let's just get into it. So the first thing is we want to get rid of these headers. The tool really needs two things. It needs a variable name and it needs the data. It does not need the question, doesn't need the levels of all of these things and so forth. One short name, okay, and then the data. So I want to delete those two. I click them, apply changes, and go to next. Okay, here, sometimes there's misspellings, like male can have a capital M, male can have a small m. You want to clean all of that up right early. Here in this example, there's disagree with 3 E's and 2 E's. Okay, so I want to turn that into that. That is, I want to collapse those disagrees into the correct spelling. The tool picks that up. Okay, and again, all right, so you want to do that cleaning first. Then I want to deal with Likert type items, which are very common. I happen to have a 5-point agreement scale, okay, which is very common. I have those labels. I want to turn to those numbers, okay, because I want to create a pre-test knowledge score and a post-test knowledge score. And so I need to get those labels into numbers. And I do that by selecting the appropriate scale, checking all of the ones that I want to turn from labels to numbers, and then apply those changes. Okay, and then I'm going to next. Then I'm going to create subscales. So there's 3 pieces to this. Perhaps 4. So I want a name, I'm going to call it pretest knowledge. Okay. All right. I'm going to select whether I want them summed or averaged. Okay. And I'm going to select the items that are in that are part of that pretest knowledge. Now, the one little trick is if you have a reverse coded item, okay, you have to put the min and max in. Some questions are asking, so for the Rosenberg, for example, you can say, I feel good in the morning. I have good self-esteem in the afternoon. At nighttime, do you feel lousy or something of this sort? Okay, so they're asking the question in reverse. I have to flip that question. So all high numbers mean high self-esteem. All low numbers mean low self-esteem. So in scoring sheets of your instruments, they'll identify which ones are reverse coded. So I've created a subscale name. I'm selecting to average them. I'm identifying the items to be part of that subscale, which ones are reverse coded, and my min and max. Once I do that, I've just created that subscale. And I'm going to add one more. Okay. Post-test knowledge. All right. And select those items. Okay. All right. Now you just go to next, and then an ID variable. That's fine. You can have an ID variable. It's nice to have the ID variable because if you have if I miss put in data incorrectly, like I put in a 44, I want to identify. Oh gosh, I got to go back to participant number 9 to correct that. Okay. So with that data clean wizard, I really have managed that data pretty well. There's only 2 other things I would do quickly. That one is age. I happen to know that it's an ordinal variable, and it's not people age 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are age groups. So I was gonna say 30, to 39. So you can just type right into that. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to put that right back in again. So you can see the age groups or ranges, and then it shows you the frequency in percents, and I put that right back in. So now I have my ID, age, sex, okay, my raw data, my composite scores over here. And let's talk about this thing for a second. If you have an open-ended question, this was about transformational leadership. So I have 20 items. You could probably just read that and come up with, categories of that. But if you have 220, that's going to take a second. So we have a text classification functionality that when I select that functionality and that variable, it's going to select the number of categories or groups that one can have. Okay? And you can see here that it's transformed these open-ended responses into interpersonal communication, strategic thinking, transformational leadership, and values and ethics. So the good news about that is that once I have those buckets, now I can interact with my other data. For example, I can ask the question, are there differences on post-test knowledge by leadership category? So it's nice to have that. I'm not going to spend time on plots except to say that you can easily plot data. Let's pick profile. I can look at my knowledge pre to post, look at it by age group. Okay. All of these things also have video tutorials, be it in data management, be it in plots, be it in analyses, you can watch a quick 3-minute video to kind of understand how to do that. You'll also note that there's levels of measurement here. So for the profile plot, it wants a scale variable, okay? And then it's going to want to bucket it by ordinal or nominal variables. And once you click that, you can kind of see very quickly, you know, what's happening with pre to post knowledge by age groups. Okay. You can scroll over it. You can export this in numerous ways. You can make different labels of things, okay, and so forth. All right. So lots of different types of plots. The analyses. So currently we don't have any analyses. The first thing you want to do with, I'll say with all data, you want to conduct descriptive statistics. You want to conduct descriptives because you want to see if you made a mistake with data entry, okay? Even if it's electronic or, Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey, you want to be able to see what's happening here. And it has to make sense to you. So let's just look at these demographics. For example. So the first thing you'll see is that it makes an APA table. Everyone should be very happy with that, okay? Back in the old days, we were making these things by hand, and it was, time consuming. Like, let's just burn time. So you don't have to do that now. So this new variable I created of these categories, age, sex, you want to just look at that, okay? Does that make sense? All right, do I have 20 people? Yes. For the scale variables, you can also see the APA table. I created this pre-test, post-test, okay? They also have helpful scrollovers. Okay? So you want to just make sure that all looks and makes sense. And if not, it doesn't make sense, you want to go back to your data, okay, and fix things, okay? So you want to go back and say, whatever, edit data, and then get into it. Okay. So most DNPs pair t-test. So let me just edit the data a little bit here. Just to make sure we have something that's significantly different. Go to edit data. I can just change these to 5. Okay. Okay. So the analyses, as I say, run the gamut from really descriptives, all of the correlations. What are most people doing? We're doing correlations, we're doing t-tests, we're doing ANOVAs, we're doing linear regression or binary logistic. We're doing chi-squares, right? And there's other things here, okay? But those are the kind of run-of-the-mill tests that people run. So after descriptives, let's go to that t-test, which most people are doing. So the question that we're asking here is there a difference, okay, from my pre-test to my post-test? So very often there's some intervention in between, right? There's some knowledge, I give some education, there's an intervention, and then there's a post-test. That's the root question, the Pico light question. Is there differences from pre to post? Or is my intervention effective? Okay, but I'm looking, my intervention is effective if I see differences on knowledge. So select the paired t-test, put in the variables, and hit calculate. So for all of these different tests, one thing for sure is that you have to put in the assumptions. Okay? So the assumption of a paired sample t-test, okay, is that that is normally distributed. What does that mean? What that means is, in this context, is that if I took the post-test minus the pre-test, okay, all right, I'm going to get a change score or a difference score. There's an average difference score, okay? Not everybody, let's just do this real quick. So this is variable calculator, okay? So knowledge change, okay? Change score. And I'm just going to take knowledge post minus knowledge pre. Now I have change scores, okay? All right, that's the post minus the pre, okay? And I can now look at that mean of that change score. So descriptives, descriptive, get into the knowledge change. So the average change from pre to post is 1.21 units, okay? But not everyone has 1.21 units change. Some have a little more change, some have a little less change, okay? And those changes should look like a normal bell curve. I'll look to see if I can do that in the plots, okay? So a histogram is the right test there, I think. Knowledge change. Sometimes these things do not look pretty, but that should look like a bell curve or not dissimilar from a bell curve. That's our normality assumption. So it's tough to look at that plot though to see, does that look like a normal bell curve? But fortunately, that test, the Shapiro-Wilk, does that for you. It runs the test automatically and interprets that automatically. Okay. The next piece of a paired t-test is to look at the result. T-test was significant. And we can see here in the APA table that the post-test knowledge was greater than the pre-test knowledge. Here's one interpretation of it. But just to know that I want to see if it's significant, A, and B, interpret that. Yeah, post-test had higher scores than pre-test. Okay, and then a plot. You can then download that, okay, document into an editable Word document. I guess I'll do that. Okay. And I want to get to folks' projects, so I'm going to keep going here. But just to know that you have an editable Word document here. All right. And then you have, APA style references. You have a glossary of terms and symbols. So it's kind of, it's meant to be helpful to you. Like, what do those terms mean? We also have an AI summary. So let's just, for the heck of it, let's just run a regression real quick. I ran regression. I want to see if post-test can be predicted from pre-tests. And I'm going quickly, sorry. Does pre-test predict post-test? And just like with the t-test, it's going to put the assumptions in. There's a scroll over to see whether that assumption is met or not. Okay, other assumptions. And then the results are in plain English, and not significant. Okay, APA table and so forth. I want to just highlight that you can get an AI summary after you've conducted a bunch of tests. You can get AI summary to kind of summarize what all of those results are. Okay, and as I mentioned, this could be really helpful for the beginning of a discussion section. Okay, so the analysis reveals significant improvement in knowledge among participants. That's true. Knowledge change across participants was overall positive, indicating the effectiveness of some educational approach. You have to make sure that that's correct. Okay, we're assuming that knowledge changed. Okay. By the way, it picked up that it was knowledge, right? I only put in the word no, but so it's kind of smart. The regression was not significant. Okay, and then talks about demographics. So this is downloadable. So just know that this is there. Obviously, you can make mistakes. The analyses, 100% accurate. The summary, you have to vet it. Maybe it wasn't knowledge, maybe it was some other acronym, okay? So just look at that. Okay. So let me get to see if there's projects that have been shared here. So I have one. So Melissa, so I'm gonna maybe just answer the Q&A, for example. So in one section of the student's paper, the student needs to identify a parametric and non-parametric test. Will the decision tree assist with this, or does the student need to contact someone? Great question. Great question. So that's worth talking about. So if I want to look at explore differences between a group, okay, and I have one DV. Oh, let's go back. Do I have more than one DV? No. No covariates. We haven't talked about that. Just one IV. Okay. So based on the level of measurement, and this might well say it in here, both tests are used to assess what the mean differences on a scale variable. Okay. Okay. The man weighting does not have distribution, can be used if the assumptions are violated. It's a little bit tricky there, but so if you had ordinal variables, okay, or assumptions not met, we're in non-parametric land here. So some of these things are asking whether or not it's a scale or nominal, okay. So it's going to give you some help. It may not take you all the way home. I think you need to know some of these tests are non-parametrics, the chi-squares, the Spearman correlations, and so forth. It's basically the plan before they discuss the actual results. Yes, Lisa. What type of test do you need to run if you do not have a normal distribution? Great question. A non-parametric test. So in this analysis, if those assumptions were very different, for example, and let me just dummy up that data really quick. Let's just have these be very wide. Okay, wide standard deviations. Okay, so what I'm doing here is that the so I'm gonna make I think this could be okay. Let me do this. I'm trying to make these, and then let's just have this as a group. Let's just call this control. And let's just call this treatment. Okay, or intervention group. Okay. Now let's just call this a group. So that's fine. So let's just this is fine. So let's just do another test to kind of speak to this non-parametric business. Because okay, so if I just ran a t-test and I wanted to know, I'm asking a different question. Are there differences on knowledge, post-test knowledge by group? Put it in my variables. So it's going to run this test. So it looks at normality. That was violated. And it shares that it's violated. So that's one assumption that's violated. And homogeneity variance is another assumption, and that's also violated. So when that parametric test, independent samples t-test is violated, it automatically provides a non-parametric test. That is, the Mann-Whitney also looks at differences on knowledge post by group, but it does not have that assumption, and then it shares that result there. Which is also significant, so I hope that gets to it. Okay. Let's, do we have Jennifer?
We have one hand raised. I asked if they
Is that
shared their
Jennifer's?
project. No, it's Sharon, so I'm gonna unmute Sharon.
Oh,
and
wait,
hopefully-
I'm sorry, I need to refresh, sorry. That's my bad. Okay, so Sharon,
Yes, 1 second.
is this you, Sharon?
There we go.
That is me.
Hi, Sharon, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Sharon, Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah.
That's where I got my degree from when I was a baby, okay?
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
I love Fullerton, so it's very nice to see you here. This is your data,
Yes.
so you need the data cleaning wizard. So, but I'm gonna,
Okay.
so because data cleaning is a big deal. So you have these, is this, what do we have here?
I'm not sure what that is. It's the
Is this your data?
pre and
Okay.
post.
So,
And
where's the pre to post?
well, if you go
Oh,
back
I
to
see.
the, yeah, right
Okay,
here.
okay. So your pre and post is stacked on top of each other, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And remember from the beginning, everybody's scores need to be on one row.
Oh, okay.
So what has to happen is you need to download that data, okay?
Okay.
And for pre and post is very common now, okay? So that's why we went over this. So this pre to post, you need to do so. You need to create this is, well, another example of ID variables, okay? All right.
Okay.
This is person one, right? This is person two, right? This is person three and so forth. And I need
Okay.
this person one, this is their pre-test, no problem.
Uh-huh.
This is their post-test. I gotta get
Uh-huh.
Control X and I gotta put that over here. Oh, shoot. See, Melissa, I told you I can't copy and paste. So I'm gonna copy, all right, and I need to paste it. So you need to do this for each individual, okay?
Okay.
So one participant needs to be on one row, all right? So at the end of the day, copy, paste, okay? All right, let's do one more, copy, paste, okay? And then you're gonna delete this other business. So you have a nice clean
Okay.
data set of one individual here,
Mhm.
okay? That has let me get rid of this guy, Tim. That has their pre, okay, and then it's gonna be post X2, okay, post X3, and so forth, okay?
Okay. Mhm.
All right, that's the start of it. You gotta get that data clean like that.
Okay.
That's step one. Then I think you're probably in okay shape. Once you get that data cleaned, okay,
Mhm.
then you can do paired t-test. So, in this
Oh.
situation, variable calculator. So we're creating a pre-test and post-test score, okay? Create, pre-test, mean or sum, put in the
Mhm.
variables of interest, okay? They have to be scaled, by the way, all right?
Okay.
So your task, organize the data,
Mhm.
turn them all into numbers, create the composite score, run a paired t-test.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then I'll put a shameless plug in. We do have consulting available right here. And then there's also a QR code at the end of the PowerPoint that I should probably mention. kind of getting there. So the PowerPoint. From the current slide, okay. And I think from current slide. So just to share that you can schedule consult there. And
Okay.
honestly, bang it out in a half an hour. Okay. Every
Oh,
bang it out. Data, manage data, composite scores, t-tests, and move you along. While we're here, so, and also I should mention that Samantha can help with students, okay, like you.
mhm.
Ashley can help with demos and trials and courseware for faculty, or there's nothing better, and I'm happy to do it, to assist you with your own research, get to know the tool and not get your research. Melissa for general questions, as well as I can do student and faculty presentations for if you have professional development or a cohort of students, Melissa can assist with that. And then a general
Okay.
phone number and some websites, okay? So those would be the kind of the staff that can help. Okay. All right, let's see who else we have here. I hope to see you, by the way. All right. All right. Melissa, is Jennifer available?
Jennifer, if you're in here, can you raise your hand, please? There we go.
Okay, great.
Um,
All right, Sharon, feel free to come back, but I'm gonna. Okay. Okay, then Jennifer.
Hello,
Yeah. Hi, Jennifer. How are you today?
I'm good.
All right. So what do we got going on here? So let's see.
Um, so we were looking at my pretest data today, and the two surveys that I'm using in my project, they have like the first 7 items is a yes or no, and you get a point. The next 2 items are Likert scales, and depending on what you pick, you get points. And at the end of the day, it sums up. So when you're putting the data in there, would I have to sum up all their scores first, or
So
with
there's
this
a little
item?
trick to this.
Does my
So
question make sense?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
So the question at hand is you have a Likert type and you have yes, no's. How do we average these suckers?
yeah,
That's the question. So really, so it's better exemplified here. I have a, so, whatever, Q1, and I have, yes, no, okay? Okay, and I have Q2. And I have, yes, no's. No, yes, yes. Okay, then I have a Q3. Likert type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Say it's a 5-point scale, and so forth. And the question is, how do I do that? So the answer is you have to have the same denominator here. If this is, you can't just put in first of all, you can't just put in a 1 and a 0, okay, and have question 1 get 1 or 0, 1 or 0. This one you go up to 5. That one's going to be weighted much heavily. So you have to have a way of doing that. So the simple way to do that, the way that I would do that is to have equal weights. I would have the yeses be a 5 and the no's be a 1. 1 and 5, 1 and 5 in the scale. Q3 is 1 to 5. How do I do that? So I would recode multiple, and I want to recode into scale, and I want to recode particularly questions 1 and 2, and I want to make the yeses a 5, okay, and the no's a 1. Okay. Once I have them, now I would just go in variable calculator for some whatever, some total, okay, some whatever average, okay. So I'm averaging all 3 of them. Okay, there's one way to do it. There's probably other ways of doing it, but you have to put them on the same on the same denominator.
Okay,
Otherwise, they're gonna be Q3 would have had a more significant weight, okay, than questions 1 and 2, when in fact, if they're all equal questions, 7 yes, no's and Likert, put them all on the same scale. And then change that. By the way, if you had a yes, no, maybe, I might have put a 1, 3, and 5, okay?
okay,
If I had so you get the idea.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. The common question. And but it does get me suspicious, okay, about who made that scale.
Well, the one I'm using is the nurses well-being index, so there's 9 items and the 7 are yes and no. And then the last 2 are, one's a 5-point Likert and one's a 7-point.
Okay, so with that, well, 2 things. One, I put everything on a 7-point scale now.
Okay,
So you got an extra step there. So you got to figure out what I got to do to those 5-point scales to turn it. So yes, no, you get 1 and a 7, check. 7-point scale, check. Now I have the 1 to 5, and I need to add what? I got to divide up those extra 2 points into 5 to a 40%. So now I have what? A 1, a 2.4, probably 3.8, okay, 4.2, and then is that right? And then so you got to divide, you got to put them on a 7-point. I have to think about it, but I think you're adding 0.4 to each one of those things.
okay,
You gotta have, because the 1's got to be a 1, and the 5's got to be a 7. And the question is, what are you doing with the 2, 3, and 4? Okay, so they all got to be on the same metric. That's point 1. Second point, the reason I asked the question was, what is the scoring sheet? Typically, they should have a scoring sheet there, right?
they do, I do have the scoring sheet.
Well, how do they treat that?
So how they score it is, if hold on, what is it? So -2 is lowest risk for burnout and 9 would be highest risk.
Okay, so
And
that's
so each
how
of
do
the
I treat-
items is either like 1, +1, 0, or -1.
Say that last part again. So I get the -2 to 9. That is this composite score. This is how I evaluate it. But how would they summing these yes, no's, the 5 and the 7-point scales? How
What do
they
you
do
mean?
that? Pardon?
Oh, so they sum it as if they're at risk or not. So they're not looking at the individual items.
At the
They're
sum
looking at the
level.
composite.
Right, but how do they tell you to add that composite score? How do they tell you? I'm giving you my strategy, but they may well say, hey, those 7 yes, no's, it's okay that they're weighted less or something of this sort. So what do they say for the scoring to create that composite? That's my question.
It's just each item and then they add it up.
So
I'm not,
they're adding up whether it's a 1 or 0 or
Yes.
1 to 5 or 1 to 7.
well, not the 1 to 7. So the Likert scale, if it's weird, right? So if they pick like the 1 and 2, they get a +1.
I
If they
understand,
pick
right?
the 3 or 5 on the 7 Likert, then they get a 0. If they pick the
Okay,
6 or
I see.
7 on the 7 Likert, it's a -1.
Okay, so they are scaling everything into that.
Yes,
Into that negative. Okay, I went the other way. I put it on the 7-point, but if
Okay.
so if they have instructions about how to do that, that's no problem. Okay, so that's, as I said, that's a strategy that I had. But now they follow the instructions of the scoring. If they want to put it on this, -2 to 9, no problem. All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So you answered your own question, by the way.
Did
Right?
I?
Like, how do you treat that? And you're like, oh, I have the scoring sheet right there. Okay. All right. Did you have other questions about your data?
I don't think so right now.
All right. Yeah, I mean, for sure. and I also asked you the question, who made up the scale? Because often if people make up their own scale, and I really want to dissuade people from that, one reason is it just comes with a scoring sheet. That's perfect. Okay, you want that, need that. All right, and existing instruments also have the reliability and validity that
Yes,
you're putting into the measure into the instrument section of your methodology. So one good reason is reliability, validity is there. Two, it's giving you a scoring sheet of how they've done it. And that scoring sheet is also, ties into that reliability and validity. So,
yes,
so yes, just when in doubt, follow the instructions. But if you don't know and you have some novel thing of combining these things, I offered it one strategy.
the one additional question, so if I'm using two different surveys, would I use two different projects on Intellectus, or? So
Absolutely
if the
not.
other survey is just a one item and it's a Likert, a 5-point Likert,
Keep it in the same project.
keep it in the same
Have
project.
another, just have another column. Just have another column of
Then would that one also have to be like mathed at 7, at the denominator of 7?
if it's just one, it's a one item scale,
Yes,
just leave it as it is. No, and
okay,
it could be a 1 to 100, 0 to 100. And you can correlate that well-being with that one item as well. So
Okay.
they don't have to be at the same common denominator, so to speak. So
okay,
that's a good question. So different scales, follow the instructions, but they could be on different things. One could be -2 to 9, the other one could be 1 to 100. And I can
Okay.
correlate them. I could run regressions with that. I could do everything the same.
thank you.
Yep. All right, others. I don't know if anybody else shared projects with us. Nope, I don't see any others. We encourage students to use, okay. We encourage students to use established tools. I agree with that. By the original author, agree with that. However, in many cases, students create their own tools. Do you offer services to assist students in creating tools? Well, the short answer is no. I mean, could we? We could, but why? I would dissuade students from doing that. For the reasons we just talked about, right? You want the reliability, validity. When people make their own tools, first of all, they're not experts at that. Okay, A. B, when you get to IRB, they're like, where is the reliability and validity with this? And students who make their own tools, or faculty that make their own tools, unless that's a whole project, you wind up getting into this whole validating of the tool business rather than getting to the heart of your question, which is, what are the differences pre to post or whatever? Okay, so you don't want to be off track there. So I would really dissuade people. Also, I say to people, you're a grad student, okay? And nobody in the whole world over time has ever created an instrument of on the topic of your interest. Why is that? Okay, so it's either tough to get your hands around or something. And where's the literature for that? So I would, if I was a faculty member, I would be saying find something where people have researched it. Okay, find where they have instruments that assess that. Okay, and so forth. So. I'm tracking recruitment data post-intervention. Okay, recruitment. Would a pair teachers be appropriate? Okay. I also have a Likert satisfaction scale post-test. Do you do independent sample t-tester? So if you're doing post-test intervention, it's not like that. The assumption is it's a pre-test. So if you have pre-test to post-test and it's scale, we're in paired t-test land. If you have a pre-test and a post-test and it's ordinal or an assumption is not met, then you're in Mann-Whitney land. So that's the kind of answer there, Tracy. Okay, I know we're running out of time. Let me just put this back up. So I appreciate everyone, coming and spending time. Students, feel free to get a consult. Faculty, feel free to get a demo or a trial. Or other things of that sort. Or if you want a presentation, happy to come talk to you or your staff or your faculty, colleagues and or students. And Melissa, any other questions here?
I think if there are, you can reply to the email. We're going to follow up with a link to resources, the recording and all of that. And then we're going to have this session every month. So feel free. I know some of you are just collecting data, things like that. Feel free to come back next month if it's a better time for you to, upload your data and log in.
And share it with your colleagues too. If your students or faculty, share it with others, okay? All right. And Tracy, feel free to shoot me an email if you only have post-test data and you have different groups. You may be independent sample t-test land, so that might be where it is. So feel free to shoot me an email. I'll respond to you. Okay, thank you all for your attention. Good luck with your research. And mostly great job, talk to lots of folks in these things, but you guys are doing the important work. So thank you all for everything that you're doing with patients and hospitals and clinics and all what you're doing. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend and look forward to seeing you soon. Okay, bye all. Thank you all.